We should protect famous people's privacy.
We should always protect everyone's privacy. Why? Because like everyone has the right to their life, how they want to spend it. Recently, like what happened in like someone's death, like someone's celebrity's death was there, and public was making fun of it.
What are the things that governments can do to improve the standard of living in crowded modern cities?
uh, like they can provide better job opportunities. Okay, they can improve public transport, they can create more green spaces like parks.
Also, when you were talking about whether celebrities should have a right to privacy, you spoke about everyone and not just celebrities.
Fine, ma'am, what about you?
Good. Okay, so we'll get started. The flow is simple. I'll just start with part one. You answer the questions. So let's talk about celebrities. Who is your favorite celebrity?
So if I tell about my favorite celebrity, so his name is Hrithik Roshan. I really love his movies. And my favorite movie, like I can't commit any one movie, but I like all his movies in total.
All right. Do you like any foreign celebrities?
No, I usually don't see any foreign movies, so I don't have a proper foreign celebrity as my favorite.
All right. Do you want to be a celebrity in the future?
Definitely. This answer is definitely like actually like when I was small, I really wanted to be a celebrity when I would grow, but life has different turns. But if I get a chance in my life, I will definitely want to become a celebrity once.
All right. Do you think we should protect famous people's privacy?
Yes, so we should always protect everyone's privacy. Why? Because like everyone has the right, okay, in their life how they want to spend it. Recently, like what happened in like someone's death, like someone's celebrity's death was there, and public was making fun of it. That was not really nice as a human also. So we should have some humanity in ourselves, and we should always keep in mind, like we should always protect everyone's privacy at this time.
How do celebrities influence their fans in your country?
Okay. So basically, our in my country, I'm living in India right now. So in our country, the we have a Bollywood culture. Okay. So over here, recently one trend is going on, that is Labubu. Okay, so every celebrity are wearing some Labubu dolls on their purses. So that has greatly influenced me as well as the like the people who are actually watching them wearing that Labubu shirts and Labubu things that they are attaching it with their purses or something, or when they are going on the airport. So like it greatly influences them.
All right. Now let's talk a little bit about clothes and fashion. What is your favorite item of clothing?
Okay, so my favorite item of clothing is that in summers I usually wear baggy clothes. So if like I am a shopaholic, I'm totally a shopaholic. So I usually wear baggy clothes and I purchase baggy clothes for myself.
Are there any traditional clothes in your country?
Yes. So in India, we have different type of traditional clothing, both for men and women. I will be talking about women. Okay. So basically, like we have saris and salwar suit and different type of other traditional dresses. It totally depends upon which state you are living in India.
Where do you usually purchase your clothes from?
So usually my purchase of clothing is from like some shops, like some local vendors who are here in my city. I really like them because they are affordable, they are cheap, as well as they are very like light. to wear. So I usually prefer purchasing my clothes from local vendors or local shops over here in my state.
Have you ever bought clothes online?
So I have recently purchased something from like one of the sites, which is an online site. I was really interested to buy that, but usually I prefer purchasing it, as I already mentioned. I usually try to purchase it from the local vendors or the local shops.
Were you interested in fashion as a child?
I was a kid, I was totally not interested into fashion, but as I moved into my teenage, I was really interested in wearing fashionable clothes. So I used to wear some clothes and with a lot of accessories and jewelries with it. So as a teenager, I really loved wearing some baggy clothes. So that was really nice for me.
Okay. And finally, is fashion important to you now?
So as of now, fashion plays an important role in my life, but I usually prefer wearing something that suits me or that actually suits up my mind and freshen up my mind. So that's what I usually prefer wearing.
All right. So that's the end of part one. Just give me 1 minute till I collate your feedback and then we can move on to part two of the test. All right, we can now move on to part two of the test.
Sure.
And I will be sending you your cue card. I will say it once for you. The cue card is describe a city you have lived in or visited. You should say what city it was, the reason you visited or lived there, what you liked about it, and say what was most memorable about the visit. So let me send that to you very quickly. And your preparation time starts now. So you have a minute to prepare. You can take notes that you can refer to during your long term.
Sure.
Give you 1 minute. So we can get started now. You have to speak for 2 minutes and your time starts now.
So thank you for the topic. So I would like to talk about Jaipur, a city I visited last year. So, Jaipur is the capital of Rajasthan and is popularly known as the Pink City of India due to the distinct pink color of its buildings, especially in the old part of the city. And the reason I visited Jaipur was because I'd always been fascinated by Rajasthani culture, architecture, as well as history. And also, one of my close college friend is from Jaipur, and she invited me to stay with her family and explore the city. So it was a mix of tourism as well as a personal connection that took me over there. And what I absolutely loved about Jaipur was its unique blend of tradition as well as modernity. So if you see on one hand, you can see magnificent forts and palaces. Like I visited Amber Fort, City Palace, Hawa Mahal. And on the other hand, there were many modern cafes, shopping malls, and buzzing local markets like Johari Bazaar, Bapu Bazaar. I also enjoyed the local cuisine over there. So dishes like dal bati churma, gatte ki sabzi, and Kheer Sangri were full of flavor and very different from what I usually eat in my hometown over here. And the most memorable part of my visit was the hot air balloon ride over the city at sunrise. And it was such a surreal experience to see the entire city bathed in golden light. And while floating high above the ground, I was totally fascinated. I could see the Aravali Hills in the distance, which was there, and the forts perched majestically on the hilltops, and the colorful houses below. So it gave me a fresh perspective on how beautiful and how diverse India is. Right. So
All
another
right,
thing
that
that
is good. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of part two. I would just need a minute before we can move on to part three. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about cities in general. In your opinion, what makes a city a good place to live in?
Okay. So, like you can see, cities can be like very a good place to live in. Why? Because like public transport is accessible, green spaces like parks are there, and affordable housing. Okay, affordable housing can be present over here. Traffic control system, upgraded traffic control system is always there, and waste management systems are also there in cities.
All right. Could you also tell me some negative aspects of crowded cities?
Okay. So, one of the main problems is traffic. Big cities are often crowded and it takes a lot of time to travel from one place to another. And apart from that, pollution is also a big issue. So, both air and noise pollution, like if it's managed, then it's okay. But pollution is also a big issue. Also, life in cities can be very stressful and expensive as compared to villages or the small towns.
Right. What are the things that governments can do to improve the standard of living in crowded modern cities?
Okay. So, they can provide better job opportunities. Okay, they can improve public transport. They can create more green spaces like parks. So affordable housing should also be made available so that everyone can live comfortably. They can have traffic control system and waste management system, and it should be upgraded from time to time.
Do you think that buildings in general have gotten taller over time?
Buildings, yes, modern buildings are quite different from the traditional one. So today, many buildings are like very modernized. They use materials that are good for the environment, and because of the solar panels which are there, the rainwater harvesting system which are installed on them, in contrast to traditional buildings, they focus more on the cultural design and the local materials. So basically, yes, I would say the modern buildings have grown up or have built up a little.
What do you think are more beneficial, tall modern buildings or small traditional buildings, like you mentioned?
Okay, so tall modern buildings, or if you're saying uh, the shorter buildings, right?
Just the traditional kind of older buildings.
Okay, so basically, if I say personally, I prefer traditional building because they reflect the culture and history of a place. So you can say they often have a beautiful architecture and a unique design. However, I can say I also understand that tall modern buildings are important in cities where space is limited, and they are more practical and often have better facilities.
Okay. How do you think cities overseas are different from those in your country?
So I would just take 1 minute. Yes, I would like say like a city overseas, like it has a new culture and a new lifestyle. They have different things and they have better exposure to better education or job opportunities. They have a multicultural and high quality of life and modernized version, and they
Okay.
have advanced infrastructures also that is famous for shopping and sightseeing.
All right. And finally, I would just like to know, would you say that urban planning is important?
So, urban planning, according to me, is like if I say, it's very important because it helps cities grow in a very smart and organized way. So if I say if there is no proper planning, there can be traffic jams, like overcrowding, pollution, and lack of green spaces also. And a well-planned city also provides good housing, like transportation, as I mentioned, parks, schools, hospitals, and it also makes life more comfortable and safer for everyone.
Right. Thank you so much. That's the end of your speaking test. Now, if you could just give me a few minutes and then we can discuss the test. Okay, Shani, how do you feel after the test?
So it was really nice. Like I really enjoyed, especially sharing my experience when I visited some place outside my city.
All right. Great. So let's start with some feedback for the first part. Now, generally, a lot of candidates are nervous during the first part of the test, and that shows, which is normal, and it's not judged too harshly by the examiners either, because they know that people ease into the test. So I could sense a little bit of nervousness in the beginning, but still, you were able to answer all the questions. The first thing I'd like to say is whenever you're explaining something that's cultural to you or it's unique to your country, especially when it comes to local celebrities, local cuisine, local architecture, you should always explain to the examiner what the relevance of that is. For example, when I asked you who your favorite celebrity was, you assumed that everybody knows who Hrithik Roshan is. Chances are your examiner might not, and the point is that you are going to a multicultural place where there are people from all over the globe. And so it's always good to add a little bit of an explanation as to who Hrithik Roshan is and what he does and why he's relevant in your country. That's number one. Uh, there was some, I think we can owe this to a little bit of nervousness that happens in the first part of the test, but some phrasing that sounded awkward and was grammatically inaccurate. For example, saying just uh, grow instead of grow up, life took different turns. When I was small, so generally instead of saying when I was small, we prefer saying when I was little, or when I was younger instead of small. Also, there were a little, again, this could be because of just nerves in the beginning, but overuse of like when you're struggling to come up with the next word. And what happens is there's a criteria that's called fluency and coherence, which the examiners use to assess a candidate. And under fluency and coherence, if there's hesitation when it comes to finding the right words to say, then that I mean, it didn't reflect badly on you because, like I said, that's probably because you were nervous during the first part of the test. But if it happens repeatedly, that can hurt your score a little bit. So, overuse of words like to act as a filler that can indicate hesitation, which happened a little bit. Also, when you were talking about whether celebrities should have a right to privacy, you spoke about everyone and not just celebrities. The question explicitly asked if celebrities have a right to privacy. Of course, it is assumed that everybody does, but people sort of think that no celebrities are in the public space, and so we have the right to know more about them. So the question specifically wanted to know if you think celebrities have that right, but you went ahead and said that everybody has that right and explained that. Also, there was one phrase you used where you wanted to talk about how a celebrity passed away or died recently, and you said death was there, which is grammatically inaccurate. So you could have said something like they passed away or they died and people invaded their privacy. All right, and again, yeah, when it comes to sound more natural, to sound more like a native speaker, when you were talking about the place that you are living in, you could have said I am from this place, because living in suggests that you don't belong there. It's just your temporary city that you have moved to. But the question specifically wanted to know if the place that you come from has a particular culture, and so using saying the place that I'm from would have been a better option there. You spoke about labubus, which is great, which shows that you know about what's going on, especially in Western media and all around the world. So that shows that you're aware. But you hesitated, struggled a little bit to explain how these labubus are used. I think you wanted to say that, people are using them as accessories. So if you would have said that, that would have given your answer better shape. You said they're wearing these dolls, but then it's not quite clear how somebody could wear a doll. We generally say you wear clothes. So if you would have explained just a line in there that people are using these dolls as accessories and putting them on their purses and bags as accessories, that would have clarified what you're trying to say a bit more. But speaking of your vocabulary, you did have appropriate words for the appropriate situation when you were talking about fashion. You did say you're a shopaholic, which shows that you know how to use that word and make use it in the right context. That again, lexical resource is also criteria where examiners assess whether you have the appropriate vocabulary for different situations, which in this case you demonstrated that you do have a good working vocabulary. Now, in the next question, what happened was I asked you if there are traditional clothes in your culture, but then you decided that I will just be talking about women. So the way you phrased that, it made it seem like you wanted to conditionally answer the question. So instead of saying I will be talking about women, you could say something like, I know because I'm a woman myself, I know more about women's fashions, so I can talk about that. And then you don't have to say that I will only be doing this. You can still just talk about women's fashion, just don't sound so that comes across as a little harsh, perhaps, that I'm going to change the question according to my convenience. So yeah, there were little errors in terms of prepositions, like saying purchase of clothing instead of just saying purchasing clothes. But again, in that answer specifically, you were able to use words like local vendors, affordable, which again showed that you have the appropriate vocabulary to talk about these things. In terms of pronunciation, overall, I think I had no issues understanding what you were saying. You were very clear. But a problem that again comes with that is we don't just want to be clear, we want to sound very comfortable with speaking English. And sometimes what happens is to make up for our accent, or maybe to make sure that we sound as clear as possible, we tend to over articulate. So that's a problem that you might have in some places where you articulate words or you say words with more stress than is required. And an example of that I noted down is the word interested. We usually say interested, but you said every syllable of the word with a lot of emphasis, like interested. So instead of stressing on all the T's, you can practice a little bit of what we also called connected speech, where a lot of times we don't pronounce a certain sound, we merge certain sounds together for our speech to flow better. And so that is something that you can practice to sound more like a native speaker. Again, a issue in part one, I mean, not a big problem, but just generally was that you weren't giving very direct answers to the question. Now, part one tends to be all about you. So you can feel free to go into as much detail as you want from your life. But what I felt was a lot of times you were just giving generic answers, even though this is a way to break the ice and it's a way for you to really get into your own mind and talk about yourself. So you could have made better use of that opportunity. You did answer the questions, but you didn't go into very specific instances or examples from your life. And a lot of times the answers you were giving were not direct. Like I said, you took a different turn in the answer itself. Right. For example, I think there was one question where it was about shopping online. And you didn't explain what you purchased online, which website you purchased it from. Did you like the purchase? Would you do it again? That's the kind of insights an examiner is looking for when they ask you a question. So if you go into more detail, like, I really regretted buying it online because it was ill-fitting, or I didn't like the way it looked. It looked totally different in the picture. But when I received it, it was quite a shock to me how different it was from what I had expected. So if you'd given something like that, this is just an example. It could have been any other experience that you had. Maybe you had a very good experience. You could have said, I was apprehensive of shopping online, but it turned out to be a convenient and positive experience for me. So just going into how that felt, that would have given more impact in your answers. That was about part one. Now, speaking of part two, here there was a very drastic change from how you were in part one. You were quite clear. You were quite, whether the flow was, in fact, I would say perfect, which has another issue in the IELTS is that when something shows no hesitation, it comes across as memorized or rehearsed. So it ends up sounding like not your experience, but a very generic essay that you might have memorized for the purpose of reproducing it in the IELTS. So the city question is a very, very common question in the IELTS. And a lot of times, what candidates do is they pick out the most common questions and they memorize answers that they can use here. And the examiners are trained to point that out and figure it out when something is comes across as memorized. Now, the way you were describing everything, it sounded more like you're giving something out of a tourist pamphlet than your own experience. And that's what makes it sound memorized, even though your delivery was flawless in this section. There was absolutely no hesitation, no nervousness, no issues. But again, it didn't seem like a personal experience. It seemed like, something that one writes on a blog promoting a city. So, if in part two, again, the long turn is about your specific life experiences, this is a rather generic question. And this was an easy question because it could have been about a city you've lived in or you have visited. So, you could have spoken about either of those things. So, it gives you a lot of scope. But here, the thing is, even though you did use really good vocabulary, you said it's a unique blend of tradition and modernity, the local markets are buzzing, right? You were fascinated. It was very distinct. It's a mix of tourism and personal connection. But again, these words and these phrases, while they are impactful, they're only impactful in the context of you narrating a personal experience that sounds like it's unique to you, right? So here, the risk of what you're saying sounding AI generated or sounding like it's a template that is overused, everyone is doing it, can actually work against you, even if your delivery is flawless. You have a good grasp of the English knowledge, language, you are comfortable with speaking English, you have no issues when it comes to confidence, but you still need to sound like a natural speaker. When you are having a conversation, there's always going to be some element of thinking involved. You got only 1 minute to prepare. So the notes that you would have taken would have been very limited and would have served as pointers that you had to build on. So when you're building on something while you're naturally speaking, even if you're the most gifted of speakers, there's still going to be some time that you will take to think about what you want to say next. I felt like that was missing when you were talking in part two, which led me to believe that this is a rehearsed or a memorized answer, as opposed to an answer that you came up with on the spot, which, again, like I said, is explicitly written in the band descriptors that it should not sound rehearsed. It should not sound memorized. So if you can add more from your personal experiences, I think you're holding back on doing that. But if you do that, that will really enrich all of your responses. Just talking more about, this is how I felt when I went there. You don't have to name all the monuments that you visited. You don't have to name all the dishes that you ate. But even if you expanded on how a certain monument made you feel, maybe an experience you had there, maybe a person you met there that captured the soul of the city for you, why that city left such an impact on you. It can't just be that it looked pretty. There are multiple cities in the world that look pretty, but really going into why it caught your imagination, why it had a hold on you. That personal connection I felt was a bit missing in part two, but delivery wise, part two was flawless. So kudos on that. Now, coming to part three, there was again, I think, a lot of candidates just assume that part 3 is going to be very difficult. And so they enter part 3 with a sense of nervousness. So I could see that come back in. I think maybe because you got time to prepare for part 2, you gained that confidence, but I could still see a little bit of hesitation, little bit of struggle answering questions in part 3. While it is completely okay for you to ask the examiner to repeat what they've said, if it happens more than once, that will raise a flag. And if it happens 3 times, like it did with you, that will make the examiner question whether or not they are able to understand English well or not. So, even if you're not exactly sure what the examiner is asking, if you've already asked them to repeat themselves twice, I would suggest you don't do it the third time. The third time, just go with your gut and try answering the question however you understand it, right? So you the first question, the question was actually asking you what makes a city good to live in, but your answer was why cities are good to live in. So you misunderstood the question in the first question, but you still went ahead and answered it confidently. So it didn't hurt you as much as you would think it would. So you didn't answer the question accurately. You answered a different question, but you still made the attempt to answer it, which is good. And you used a lot of appropriate vocabulary there, which was also great. Again, in the second one, talking about the negative things in a city, you hit everything. You hit the nail on the head with traffic, pollution. These are the main things that are problems with our cities these days. So no issues there. Now, again, your answers in part 3 tended to be very short. Part 3 is supposed to give you an opportunity to talk more and express your critical thinking. So, while part 1 is all about your personal life and this is me, this is that, part 3 is about how well aware you are of your surroundings, of your environment, and how many opinions do you have on these different things, and can you express those opinions adequately? So here, if you keep the answers too short, too brief, then that will hurt your score because you're meant to speak for longer. So part 3, don't hesitate to go on for a longer time, 4 or 5 sentences. If it takes you that much time to express what you truly want to say, then take that time. It's absolutely fine. Don't keep a limit. I felt like you were limiting yourself in that you thought that, okay, I need to say only these many sentences as my answer. Don't have that approach. It's good to have a ballpark so you know that you're hitting the minimum limit. But some questions require shorter answers, some questions require much longer answers. So it's the average of that is ultimately considered. So don't stop yourself, don't hold yourself back. Go ahead and express your opinion. So I think you had some issue again understanding the tall buildings question. So the question was just meant to be if you've noticed that the buildings are getting taller in terms of becoming skyscrapers. Now we have multi-story buildings that go up to like 30 floors. We have 20 floors on average in every major housing society in cities. So the question wanted to ask that have you noticed that because we're running out of space horizontally, do you think we're making use of space vertically? That's what the question was trying to ask. So I think you misunderstood that and you just gave a comparison of new buildings versus traditional buildings. Again, the problem in part 3 was that the opinions did not sound like your own opinions. They sounded like generic opinions that you get off the internet. So if you Google a question or you plug in a question in ChatGPT, the kind of generic response these LLMs give is because they don't have their own personal experience. But IELTS is all about your communication, your proficiency. And at the end of the day, we are human beings with very different personal experiences, and you have a chance to bring that out, to share that about yourself. So if you don't do that, it'll sound again memorized and rehearsed and generic. So make sure that you're bolstering every answer with examples. You could have given so many examples. You could have said that the city I live in, it has changed drastically. When I look at pictures of my parents living in the same city, when I look at older pictures, it looks vastly different from what I see now. It's almost unrecognizable. So, adding these snippets from your own life, that this is what I have felt, this is what I have observed, this is what I have experienced, that's what makes your answer a strong answer in part three of the IELTS. Of course, everyone's going to have different opinions. You're not expected to be an expert in a field in part three. What's expected is, do you have the ability to express how you feel properly, right? So don't be scared or hesitant to give the right answer. You should give honest answers. That's what IELTS is all about. You don't have to impress the examiner with your knowledge. You don't have to say that, okay, I know what this is and I'm going to talk about that. Which brings me to the urban planning thing. If you don't know what urban planning is, exactly, in that's completely fine. Okay, you can always say that about yourself, uh, you can say, I might not know what urban planning is technically, but from what I understand about it, I think, and then you can give your answer, right? So that way, the examiner doesn't care if you know all of these technical terms. The examiner wants to know if you are able to. If I say urban planning, and you might not know in the technical sense what urban planning entails, you might not know what civil engineers sit and do while planning a city, that's completely fine. But you understand the word urban, you understand the word planning, you realize that it's something to do with city planning. And when people are moving into the city, how do you manage that? So you can make your answer generic but personal. Your answers right now were generic, as in they had no element of coming from your own life experience. So that would be a major, I think, feedback that I'd like to give you, that please draw from your own life, talk about your own experiences. The IELTS is about who you are. No two speaking tests can ever be the same. No two candidates can ever give the same answer. And if a lot of people end up giving similar answers, then we'll know that they are referring to some particular website that's putting out answers there. They're memorizing this. This is not a test of memory. This is not a test of ideas. It's simply a proficiency test. And the more honest you are in your answers, the better you're going to be. So the four criteria that we have: fluency, coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So I think you would score the highest in pronunciation, because the way you delivered was very clear, barring some minor pronunciation issues in words that generally Indians tend to pronounce a certain way. Like I said, interested, instead of saying interested, entrusted. So saying trusted instead of trusted, just minor issues like that. But again, that didn't get in the way of me not understanding you. So I was still able to understand what you're saying. So in pronunciation, I would say you'd score the highest. And I think fluency and coherence, because you struggled to answer some questions or you misunderstood some questions, that would be something you can work on. And also, just when you're answering the questions, just having a clear idea of what you want to say. You are thinking too much about, am I saying the right thing? That doesn't matter if you're saying the right thing or not. You should be sure about what you want to say. So that's something that you can definitely work on. And in terms of lexical resource, you had very appropriate words for most part, and their use was also correct. So even lexical resource, you have a good range of vocabulary that you're able to implement. Grammatical range, because there were some grammatical issues here and there, and again, we can owe that to nervousness, not being familiar with the test or doing it for the first time. So there are many reasons for that. So that can be easily worked upon, but because there were some issues that I have also specifically, I will able to tell you. So I would say you would score band 7 in pronunciation and band 7 in lexical resource. And it would be a 6.5 in fluency and coherence and a 6.5 in grammatical range and accuracy. But that does make your overall band score to a band 7 for the IELTS speaking test.
Thank you so much, Mom. That was really nice talking with you. It was such a nice experience talking with you. I truly got a true feedback from your side. Definitely, in the first part, I was really scared because it was my first time going out for this test. Okay, but in the second time, of course, like I had visited Jaipur, So that was my personal experience, which I shared. But that, yes, I got so like 1 minute, so I made some pointers for that. Similarly, in the third question, I misunderstood, and that's why I was asking the questions again and again. So I got a feedback that yes, even if I don't get the answers like very right, very accurate, still I would be working on how to like bring up my own personal experiences in that, because I was a little hesitant, like in this type of structure. Do we have to give the right answer, or the actually be asking us some questions related to our personal experiences, or can we share in front of them our own personal experiences? So I was a little hesitant at that time.
No, that's a very, thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people think that, this is because we're so used to our Indian type of tests where it's all about giving the right answer. But that's not what the IELTS is about. This is not an ideas test. It's not testing whether you are an expert in a particular field, because as you can see, the questions are random. They can be about anything. So you can't be an expert in everything, right? So here it's not about whether you know a lot about something, it's whether you have opinions that you are able to express. And even if you don't have too many opinions on a particular topic, still you've had some kind of an encounter with that. Even if we don't care about urban planning, we still can formulate some sort of opinions on it, right? That's just our ability to be able to talk about anything. And that's what you need to do in the IELTS. Just talk.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you so much for guiding me.
Thank you so much, Ishani. That was wonderful. And we'd like, I mean, the if what you have to work on is very easy, very achievable, and I'm pretty sure you can jump to a band 9 the next time we do this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It really means a lot. Thank you so much for the feedback.
Thank you so much. Thank you.